Taking out dragons in Dragons Dogma 2 is one of the most exciting things because they give you an item when you defeat them called Wyrmlife crystals. And these Wyrmlife crystals are going to be everything you need for the early game, or the end game, and believe it or not, it's going to be useful as well in the post game. I'm going to show you the secrets of setting up a Portcrystal farm. That way you can teleport anywhere you want on the map with Ferrystones and farm as many dragons as you may need. Now the big question to ask is it worth it farming dragons in the early game? Is it worth farming in the end game, or is it worth farming in the post game? Well, getting Wyrmlife crystals at any time to power you up to help you go through the story is really important, as they make your weapons and your pawn's weapons absolutely kick-ass, so you can absolutely take down monsters at all times. Now, in order to do this, you have to go towards a spot on the map located over here where you will meet someone known as the Dragonforged. Essentially what he does is he's going to be able to trade you certain items for Wyrmlife crystals, like this arrow here, one of the arrows that one-shot a monster, a Portcrystal, which is very useful, as well as the Ferrystone. And once you upgrade your regular equipment, you can then finalize and get the final power-up by using the Dragonforged upgrade. Weapons usually cost around 15 WC, upper body armor about 10, hats 5, and legs are about 5. I would focus on the weapons, as these are going to be the main things used for damage. Now, in order to get a dragon farm set up, you're going to have to place Portcrystals at certain locations on the map. And the game actually offers you opportunities to get these Portcrystals. Now, besides just the Portcrystals that the game gives you, you'll also be able to get your own Portcrystals that you can place down anywhere you want. That way, when you use a Ferrystone, you can go to that exact location of your choice. Now, if you're wondering how to get Portcrystals in the game, there's about 5 you can easily get. One is going to be simply by buying it with Wyrmlife crystals to purchase from the Dragonforged guy located over here. Then you can get one from Captain Brant for completing the Feast of Deception quest. If you follow an elf named Glendeer in the city square of Vernsworth, you'll get the Gift of the Bow quest, which will eventually lead to a Trial of the Archery quest. And finally, when you complete that entire quest line, you'll get a Portcrystal for doing that by talking to his dad. If you do the Sphinx quests, which are located all the way up north, and you start off by picking the Riddle of Madness, and you place your beloved pawn in front of the Sphinx that you are closest with in the game, the Sphinx will hand you a Portcrystal. And then if you select the Riddle of Conviction, it asks you to give your most valuable item, and you hand your most valuable item to it, and it'll double up. So you'd give a Portcrystal and get the one returned to you, plus you get a duplicate. There's a Griffin's Nest that's located all the way here on the map, and if you get that, you get a Portcrystal. And if you beat the main game and do this all over again, you can get more Portcrystals. If you are playing on PlayStation or Xbox, there is also a Portcrystal trick that you can do with cloud saves, but we kind of cover this in another glitch video if you want to check that out later. Now, personally for me, having a dragon farm set up in the early game didn't matter as much, because it was more important for me during the main playthrough to explore the world and go to towns. But in the post-game playthrough, this is pretty much how I set up my Portcrystals for my dragon farm. The first Portcrystal was going to be at the Harv village area. North of that, at the ruins, this is where one of the dragons are going to spawn on occasion, so I slapped the Portcrystal there so I can teleport and take that one out at any time. If you go further north from that position, you'll find yourself at another Portcrystal that I placed down in front of this dragon, which is going to be located all the way over here, which is going to be east of the Misty Marshes. So it's going to be right about there, where you'll be able to find this dragon over here on your map and be able to fight it. Now, south from the Misty Marshes, you'll find yourself at this exact location where another dragon is going to appear. This dragon pretty much also guards the way into the Greco Cavern, which will eventually lead you to another pathway that'll bring you all the way to the Wayside Shrine where the Dragonforged guy is. So it's kind of like a dragon that is the guardian of this pathway. So you'll find this dragon right over here. It's going to be south of the Misty Marshes and right in between the spot. Not too complicated of a dragon to take out once you employ all the tactics you need, and as you level up, it should be a lot easier. Now, one of the coolest dragon spots is going to be to the west of the Misty Marshes, and it's going to be located in this entire ancient battleground. Over here, you'll find this dragon fighting a complete armored Cyclops. So it's a really cool fight. They show this off in the previews. It's very fun because you have to deal with the Cyclops as well. And you can also use some of the ballistas to try to shoot at the dragon. So it's very interesting. A fast way you can get to that location would be from the checkpoint rest town. So you can follow that road until you arrive there. So I also placed a Portcrystal there. That way I can head here anytime and take out that dragon. Before we go to the next dragon location, you should hit that subscribe button and I'll give you a Wyrmlife crystal for free. So that pretty much covers the dragons in the Vernsworth area, but let's talk about the ones in the Batal area. A great spot to place your Portcrystal down is going to be by the Reverend Shrine, where you end up getting the vocation Trickster. Luckily for us, there is campsites close by to the dragon fight, so you can rest up before you go ahead and fight, but pretty much that dragon's going to spawn right there, so it's going to be in the water, and you want to be careful not to get too soaked during that fight, because the lightning attacks will do some damage to you, especially when you are all wet. So keep that in mind when you are fighting this dragon, but it should be another simple fight. Another dragon in the Batal region is going to be going up the Worm's Blood Forest. This pathway takes forever to get entirely all the way to the top, but when you go through the entire forest, you eventually will reach Dragon's Breath Tower. And when you arrive there, all the way at the top is going to be where another dragon is going to be waiting for you. You can place a Portcrystal down right over here. That way you can spawn in and have a nice dragon fight. Sometimes you'll get the occasional griffin popping up as well with the dragon, so you can probably take on both while you are up there. It's just a very congested spot where meteors are not as easy to run from. If you don't have a class like the Mystic Spearhand that can protect you and shield you from meteors, it's a little bit harder to run around there when meteors are falling all over you. So just be careful and keep that in mind. Now, another location that you'll be able to find a dragon, which I think is a really cool spot, is if you do the main story, you'll get access to a pathway that brings you all the way to this area. It's by the beach, it's on the shore, and this dragon is actually fighting other monsters that you may need materials for. This dragon will be fighting 3 wargs, and the loot is there for you. So if the dragon takes out the monsters, you can grab the loot after the monsters fall down. It's a fun one, and if you haven't gotten through the main story and want to go over here, of course on my second playthrough, I have not done the main story. I just went through Drabnir's Grotto and made my way all the way up there. There is a volcanic island camp right over here, so just north of that, and you can come back to this crystal anytime and put your Portcrystal right here and farm it. Hopefully the wargs also respawn when you come back here. I've noticed the wargs have a little bit of difficulty respawning. This next dragon spot is going to be located to the west exit of the excavation site. It's going to be by this entire lava area. The dragon usually spawns at the bottom, so you can probably hop on the ballistas and get a couple shots in on the dragon. If you're good at it, I kind of suck at ballistas, so let me know if you're good at that. But yeah, this dragon can knock you down into the lava, so you want to be careful to keep the dragon on the top part. If you fall down into the lava, there are a bunch of lava slimes that creep up on you, as well as the lizards down there. It's not a fun time if you fall down there, so make sure to take out the dragon, keep him on the upper road, and you should be fine with that. So by placing Portcrystals in all these spots, this gives you an entire dragon farming network on your map. This will allow you to just use Ferrystones to get to each one, take out each dragon in that same day, and then once you're done, move far away from the dragons, go to a town, rest 7 to 14 days. You can skip on a bench. To be extra safe and get the dragons to spawn, you can save your game, exit out completely, and then come back in, and then you can repeat the farm over and over again. Remember, if you do need Ferrystones, all you have to do is refresh 3 days in the game and buy one from the shop for 10,000, and if you're friendly with the shops, they'll have discounts, or you can just go ahead and farm a pathway to get Ferrystones as well. That's another thing that people do. They head over to this location here, which is a secret entrance into the Batal region, and from here they'll just fight the Minotaurs and hopefully get lucky and get those drops. That's another way people also get Ferrystones. So that's where I actually keep my final Portcrystal, to farm more Ferrystones for free and get XP. There are 3 strategies that I want to share with you, and if you have other strategies for dragon farming, feel free to list them down in the comments. But the first one is going to simply be Mystic Spearhand and the ability called Mirror Shield. This one is insane, and I think it's the most broken skill in the game, because anytime the dragon decides to fall on top of you, if the dragon decides to cast lightning, or if the dragon decides to just call upon meteors to strike you on the ground, you just have to activate Mirror Shield, and you and your team will literally not take any damage. You can summon this multiple times while it's it's already cast, you just recast it over and over again. And it's a really good way for your team to stay completely immune to all of the dragon's abilities, while your sorcerer just goes ahead and nukes it with meteors and your team just wails damage on the dragon. Another strategy is the sorcerer ability known as Augural Flare. I find this one very broken, and it's a lot of fun because all you have to do is just cast a little bubble on the enemy with the flare, and then your team can run up and do damage, or you can just shoot your regular command at the dragon just to hit that bubble so it can take more damage. If you have a thief, typically they'll run at that Augural Flare spot and stab it even more. That way it'll get powered up and explode. By far, that one was the easiest method I've used throughout the game. Now, the third one is an experiment that I'd like y'all to test out, but it's essentially using the Thieves' core skill called Bump and Lift, which basically allows you to rob the target of an item when an attack connects, and it activates when using Carve. Has a low success rate, but hear me out. If you grab 3 or 4 thieves on your team and then you nonstop just jump on the dragon and all the thieves are just carving it out, I'm pretty sure that you can farm up a lot of Wyvern crystals on top of the fact of you nuking the Wyvern completely. I've heard rumors that you can net over 100 a dragon, but let me know if it's possible. Any of you can test that out. Now, of course, you don't have to do these 3. Play the game you want. These are just 3 suggestions that I wanted to throw out there for y'all to follow, or that you all can use. Now, to get to the secret unmoored world, you're gonna have to go through the entire story until you reach the Moonglint Tower. From here, you're gonna be facing the main dragon that you see in the beginning of the game, and you're gonna have to make a choice of whether you want to run away or fight him. The goal is obviously to go and hit that dragon. That dragon is then going to take you on a ride to a location so you can 1v1 him, but you're not going to let that happen. You're going to crawl on this dragon's back until your heart starts glowing. Some players report that you can stab your heart at the top by using the item the moment it's glowing, but I would say just crawl down to the bottom of the dragon where you're facing its heart. You're directly right in front of it, and press the item, go into your item menu and click on that sword and press it into yourself. That'll cause a sequence of events, which I'm not going to spoil, but it basically brings you into this place called the Unmoored World, which is pretty much where the world is kind of ending at this point. It just looks like destruction is set upon it. Now, when you're in this world, you will encounter a bunch of different dragons as you're exploring throughout, but you will not be allowed to be here for too long. So the goal is not to rest, but to accumulate as much dragon farming as you can while you're here. Now, you'll find regular dragons that will drop the typical amount of Wyrmlife crystals here. You'll be able to fight the Pimple Dragon when you come across it, but the main objectives of the Unmoored World is basically to take out these giant red beams that you find across your map. These unique dragons that you come across in these various areas like Arbor Village, the Expedition Site, Batal, and ones in Vernsworth area, these dragons will all drop tons and tons of Wyrmlife crystals that you can use to purchase certain things in the Unmoored World. You're not going to be here in this world forever, and you can find a bunch of good loot as you explore this area, but the most important part of the Unmoored World is finding the Dragonforged person that is located at the Seafloor Shrine. And when you talk to him, this time you're going to see an option for trade items, and it's not going to be the basic items that you found in the regular game. It's going to be more than just a Portcrystal that you can buy, but you're going to see tons of armor that you could purchase, as well as these end game dragon weapons, which cost about 110 Wyrmlife crystals, which is the entire reason I'm doing this video, so that you could spend money on this guy. But this isn't even it, because once we talk about the post game, it's going to get crazier. But just know that you have all these options to buy all this various stuff from him for your pawn and yourself, as well as the end game items in general, just opening up in shops at this point. Now, the rest of the Unmoored World can be figured out by you, because now we're going to go into the post game, which is where the dragon farm truly happens, which is going to happen once you touch the final red beam light after fighting the other dragons in the area. This will bring you to a new screen where you'll have the option to take all the stuff you did in your previous save and carry it over into a new game. So pretty much all the points of interest you've put on your map is gone in the new game plus, but what's really cool is if you open up your map, the entire map is revealed, and you just have to play until you can drop all your Portcrystals. But I want to show you the new upgrades that are available from the Dragonforged NPC in the new game plus. So if you head over to where the Dragonforged guy is in the new game plus, which is really annoying because you have to make your way all the way there at the Bay Wayside Shrine, So let me just head in here. It's the same exact location as the regular game. You'll find your guy here as usual. The Dragonforged is going to be right here. But when you talk to him, you're going to get a lot more different options. You'll get something called Receive Blessing, and each of these costs 30 Wyrmlife crystals. This experience boon will increase daily experience. For a full day, you'll get increased discipline if you haven't finished leveling up certain classes. For this one, you'll get 1 full day of stamina recovery speed being highly increased, which is the cheaper one, and charming aura, which is 1 full day. You'll find it easier to increase people's affinity for you. First one's just to flex your levels. Second one is to speed up your class. Third one's going to be if you're just doing a bunch of combat. You're allowed to stack up on these. And the final one's going to be if you want to increase your affinity with people to get cheaper shop prices, or if you want to have a love story with a very fancy schmancy woman that's located in the Vernworth Castle area. Now, when you select trade items, you'll find that the Ferrystones are all back here, the unmaking arrows returned, and you can buy another Portcrystal. These are options as well, and all the weapons that you saw in the unmoored world are also going to be here along with the armor. So those are things you can buy at any time, and you're going to do these Wyrmlifes to upgrade. You also have things such as Improved Vocation, which is really interesting. So you can boost status increases of all these different classes when leveling up. It just says that only 1 vocation can be improved per person at a time, and receiving a new blessing will revoke the previous one. You can do this on yourself as well as doing it with your pawn. So if you want to lock down into a specific class, this is a really good option for you. The most tedious of them all, though, is going to be Improved Skill, which is going to cost 20 worm crystals each to basically slash the stamina consumed for each of these vocations and all of their separate abilities. And you have to do this for you and your pawn. Obviously, you don't have to do everything unless you're a really big completionist, but it'll cost you quite a bit to focus on each specific skills that you'd like to. And trust me, cutting down stamina on a bunch of powerful moves is going to be the way to go. Now, I have to share my honest thoughts with you about dragon farming, especially once we reach the post game, because the game doesn't really offer us enough content to keep going. The motivation to continue to get all these upgrades on your character and on your pawn, yes, it's going to make your characters even stronger and more overpowered, but for what purpose? Dragons Dogma 2 is a game that was released that was almost perfect, but feels like it's missing so much content. The game difficulty doesn't increase, but stays the same, and there's no other difficulty increases or new locations where you could fight a bunch of harder enemies. But I guess if the DLC is eventually coming out for this game, just like Dragons Dogma 1, doing all this farming is going to be very necessary in order for you to have high-level pawns with upgraded weapons and upgraded skills, as well as your own main character, your Arisen, having high upgrades with your skills and with your weapons, but it's totally up to you of when you would like to do this. Now, personally for me, I'll just be playing this game until I max out all my vocations and buy all the skills, and probably just buy armor for one class that I really enjoy and upgrade my pawn for the class that I like it being on. But let me know what you're gonna do in this game. Hope this dragon farming guide was useful for you all. Now you know everything about dragons in Dragons Dogma, you should check out this video on my face.